Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Don't Want to Pay for the Work Done? Have a Dead Yard." So I have lurked here for a while, but never really thought any of my stories qualified until I remembered one from 2008 or 9, cannot remember exactly anymore. Quick backstory to keep it from being too boring: I had recently lost my job like most people at the time and was having to do odd jobs on Craigslist just to get by. I recruited a friend to help me do the various odd jobs since he was in a similar situation. We pooled our resources and cobbled together enough equipment to do landscaping work, along with other odd jobs that you would hire manual labor for. We were both young, like early 20s, and didn't really know when we were getting scammed or fooled. We got a call on one of our ads to go do some landscaping work for a guy who happened to live about a mile away. Awesome, we won't have to spend much on gas, but we will have to sacrifice our Labor Day weekend to do the job since it was a large job. The guy asked us to put in a raised bed that essentially wrapped around his entire house. Imagine a house in a newly built subdivision that has a smallish yard and few trees. He wanted the bed to be built with landscaping bricks and wanted us to copy a style that his neighbor had done. Cool, no problem. We try to discuss payment, but he keeps giving us the runaround. Because we were in a desperate situation, we get fooled into doing the work with no agreed upon labor fee. This was our mistake, one that was never made again. We were just happy to have some work. We spent 2 full days working our asses off in the middle of summer, not really knowing what we were getting paid. We were using our tools, truck and time, grinding away, but we kept wondering why this guy was acting so shady. Finally, on day 3, near the end of the day, I am fed up with the runaround and knock on the door and confront the guy about payment. He starts getting all aggressive and starts threatening us with non-payment, which immediately escalates the situation. I grab my friend and bring him into the argument. After about 30 minutes of arguing, the guy decides he will pay us $70 for the work. Yeah, 70 damn bucks to split between us after 3 days of labor. Cool, F us, right? We loaded up our truck with the tools and then waited for the guy to come out with our cash. This a-hole comes out with a huge wad of cash, but proceeds to still only hand over 70 bucks. What a POS. We collect our money and grab our last item, a tarp. We had been using a really large tarp to put weeds, grass and extra dirt on to make our lives easier since we didn't have a wheelbarrow at the time. The accumulated mount on this thing had to have been 4 feet high. We drag it into the middle of his front yard and dump the tarp. This is the first FU. He was begging us not to do it, but he could eat a dick at this point. We load up and peel out because, you know, angry youngsters. And now for the pro-revenge part. My friend's mom was a real landscaper. She heard our story and offered up some excellent revenge advice. Take the backpack sprayers we had, fill them with a warm saltwater mix and then ride over and spray his yard. We planned to do this about 2 months later, and when the time came, we executed the plan at late night around 2 AM. We parked down at the pool parking lot, walked down to his house and absolutely bombed this dude's yard. We came back about a month later and everything was dead or dying. Flowers, grass, small trees, all of it. F with the guys that are doing your yard work, F your yard. And guys, if you have watched until here and still enjoy the neighbor stories, because I do for sure, then please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance, your help means a lot to me and it really supports the channel growth. And the next one is titled, Land Deal Gone Awry, A Tale of Vengeance. And guys, if I pronounced that wrong, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, disclaimer, this tale of revenge was thought up and carried out by my parents and neighbor. My parents live in a nice quiet neighborhood. For the most part, everyone gets along well and the neighborhood exists in its own little bubble. The only time you see people from outside the neighborhood bubble is on Halloween. Our backyard neighbor, a single middle-aged woman who we will call Sally, was kind of adopted by our family and came to all holiday parties and family get-togethers. We all love her, and that made our revenge all the more satisfying. Sally had a next-door neighbor who owned a lot between Sally's house and her own. When the neighbor expressed an interest in selling the lot, Sally offered to purchase it and a deal was made. Unfortunately, Sally's neighbor died prior to the land deal being finalized, and the lot went into her assets to be distributed to her only daughter, who we will call Resting Witch Face, or RBF. RBF disliked Sally and refused to sell the empty lot to her because she believed Sally had been attempting to screw her mother over. RBF claimed she was going to sell it to an interested developer who would build a house there. When my parents heard this, they were upset. Our house was on a hill and the empty lot also ran up to our backyard. My parents didn't want to look down into another house and backyard. Likewise, Sally did not want a house next to her, so she tried one last time to purchase the lot. She offered more than she had originally planned on paying, but RBF said she would never sell the lot to her. My parents and Sally hatched a plan though. My parents, whom RBF didn't know, had an attorney draft a purchase offer for the empty lot. They offered several thousand less than Sally's original offer had been. RBF hemmed and hawed but came back with a counter offer equivalent to Sally's original offer. My parents offered her 5,000 less and she accepted. After the sale was finalized, my parents sold the lot to Sally for the same price they purchased it. Sally ended up receiving the lot for 5,000 less than she had originally agreed to pay, and over 10,000 less than what she offered to RBF. RBF did find out what happened and tried to negate the contract with my parents on accounts of fraud, but that is obviously not a legitimate claim. RBF never spoke to Sally or to my parents after she learned what happened. Another interesting tidbit: after purchasing the lot, my parents notified the town of their intent to not develop the property so nobody can ever build a single-family dwelling on it. Killed two birds with one stone, no downhill neighbor, and the property stays in the family. And guys, that is what I would call absolutely genius pro-revenge. In my opinion, that was one of the most satisfying revenge stories we have read in a long while. And the next one is titled, "Try to get rid of me in an overseas big city. We will get rid of you instead." Hey all, explanatory username. A close friend told me that this subreddit was the best place to drop stories like mine, so here I am, and for the sake of privacy, all names are altered. I hope I followed the rules with this post, and if I didn't, go easy on me, it's my first time here. Context: back in 2011, me and my immediate family traveled to Saudi Arabia for Umrah. And by the way guys, my apologies if I mispronounced the Arabic names. Anyway, or what is known as the Lesser Pilgrimage. You visit Mecca, make rounds around the Kaaba, pray with all your heart and soul, you get the picture. My dad and I were excited because we were all about going on a spiritual journey and casting away the problems of the world, but as it turns out, some problems just would not leave us. As soon as we landed in Jeddah's airport, our plan was to take a taxi to Mecca and get the Umrah done while we were still gung-ho about God. However, we were instead diverted to our relative's house in Jeddah, where we discovered that 4 or 5 of my mother's relatives and their families had gathered up and spontaneously crashed in my grandpa's house for one giant family reunion. Naturally, my dad and I, as well as my maternal grandpa, were really upset over this development, as my mom's side of the family is full of, for the lack of a more polite word, the shady folks. Most of them I was on good terms with, but once I realized that my least favorite uncle and aunt had come with the crew, my enthusiasm just deflated like a balloon. For a quick comparison, Uncle Zubair and Aunt Rubina were the Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia of the family to me. They would spoil their own kids rotten, be as stingy as they could with me before getting noticed, and oh, did they love to take advantage of the fact that I couldn't speak Urdu at all when I was younger. They talked smack about me and made fun of me for all sorts of things, and when my mother brought it up, they simply waved it off as me misunderstanding whatever they said in Urdu, and my mother trusted them. Sure, I could not speak the language well when I was 8, but I could damn well understand a lot of what they were saying, and just going through all that really made me intensely dislike them. Back to 2011, the entire rodeo of relatives comes up with a great plan. Let's go complete our Umrah trip as a group of 23 people. It'll be a great time. Me and my father reluctantly agreed to this, and before we head to Mecca, my father makes a little contingency plan for the rare occasion me or my siblings get lost. My mother shares it with the group and everyone thinks it is a good idea. If someone gets lost, we all return to X floor of the clock tower building and wait for the rest to come. No problems, right? We go to Mecca, we have dinner in the clock tower hotel, and as I am getting napkins to clean up after the food, the men split up and abruptly leave for the Kaaba. The ladies already had left, and Aunt Rubina still at the table, waiting on the napkins. When I ask her where all the men went, she smiles and points in the wrong direction and also tells me twice that our contingency plan got changed and we were to meet on Y floor if we got lost, instead of the original contingency plan. Had I been older, I would have noticed something was very wrong with her words, but I was 15 years old and fearful of being left behind, and so I ran off without even doubting her. The result of her misleading me amounted to 1 hour of checking out the entire hotel looking for my father and the men, and then heading out to the Kaaba and spending 3 hours circling the Kaaba, distracted and heavily disturbed by the fact that I couldn't find them anywhere, and then heading back to the new contingency plan's location and crying myself to sleep on a rusty chair because none of the guards understood me and I honestly thought I was lost for good. A couple hours later, my father finds me and he gets violently mad at me for ditching the group and going to the wrong floor, but he realizes something is up as soon as I tell him what Aunt Rubina told me. The men quickly arrive and hug me out, and when Uncle Zubair hugs me, he grins and asks me, "Did you feel despair?" before laughing it off as I take the next minute to process this man's words. The entire group of 23s just trying to talk to me and see the positives out of the situation on the car ride back, but the whole time I just have one thought on my mind. Did my uncle and aunt really just try to intentionally mislead me and lose me in a large city overseas? I later tell my parents the whole story. My father is a little bit unsettled and the rest of the trip continues with my parents keeping a close eye on me. Back in 2015, we visited the homeland and met up with all these bozos who were excited to see my mom's American family, and just as expected, Uncle Zubair and Aunt Rubina are in the mix. I decided not to say anything about what happened 4 years prior, and I make my mom promise not to say anything about the incident as she loves to reminisce things. About an hour into the trip, I realized that my uncle and aunt still think I have the same language comprehension I had when I was 8 years old. Amazing how they think I am so stupid. But in 2015, I was finally able to speak and understand Urdu fluently, but I wasn't just going to tell them that. With that, I decided that I would snoop around and maybe sit through their crap again with a recorder and show my mom that I was right all along. About them lying to my mom that they were not crap talking me. But this is where things get interesting. Uncle Zubair takes me along with his son as we visit a couple different apartments and houses he has the keys for and help him clean out the houses. "My neighbors are out on vacation and they asked if I could help clean up for them," he tells me in his broken English, but I really doubt him between how fervently he is scouring the entire place and how he is indiscriminately throwing their belongings in giant trash bags and large rubber containers. Belongings of neighbors that apparently trusted him enough to leave their spare keys with him as they stayed with relatives in America or elsewhere for the summer. It was weird and shady AF. I had never seen anything like this back in the States, but I connected the dots when on another day Uncle Zubair's son called me from one of the said apartments and asked me if I could walk over there and pick him up. Turns out the house was almost entirely empty of anything the neighbors owned, and my cousin already set a bunch of his own stuff in there and had the gall to tell me, "Papa said this is my apartment now." What a riot! My uncle was robbing people of their apartments and houses when they were on vacation. A week later of some unnoticed eavesdropping, and I learned that Aunt Rubina and my other cousin are doing this same dirty work in the state/province right next to ours. They had better English and told me that they were going to the other state to help my cousin study, and I was just nodding it off. Yeah, go study your lying ass off, as if I didn't hear you at all 24 hours ago talking about cleaning house preparations. We are having dinner later that night with Uncle Zubair and a few other family members, and when there's a lull in the conversation, he just asks me, "Son, what's your favorite part of the summer so far?" And I just smiled and replied in Urdu, "I love the real estate work you've been doing. Could you help me get a property as well?" His face just drains the moment he realizes I knew the crap he's been pulling, and everyone at the table starts asking questions because my uncle is the last guy to talk to about house-related matters. They prompt me for more information and I just spill what his son said. Papa said this is my apartment now, and what type of bullcrap he and his wife were doing 5 towns over, and the next thing I know I am taking my dinner plate back to my room as the drilling commences in the dining room. As my family and the rest of the extended relatives find out, he has been clearing out apartments of neighbors who went overseas for the entire summer, maybe 10 or so such flats and little houses, and hauling their possessions to a storage unit somewhere only God knows. The controversy gets really big, a couple homeowners get alerted and chase Aunt Rubina and my cousin out of the other town, and it is not long before my parents told me that our entire family pretty much disowned my uncle and aunt's family for pulling this immoral bullcrap when being trusted with people's keys. In the end, I was never able to stick him with the "did you feel despair?" line he hit me with back in 2011, but man, am I glad I won't have to deal with their crap again. And the next one, got a trampoline for the kids, they loved it. HOA asked me to get insurance coverage for it, so I got insurance coverage for it and made a copy of the statement for them as proof. HOA then faxed every incident report involving trampolines in the neighborhood to my insurance company, referencing my policy number, and sent a letter of disapproval. Now my kids don't have a trampoline, and neither do any kids in this entire neighborhood now. The saddest part is, on Google Earth it still shows the trampoline, and my youngest daughter was sad when she looked up our address. In the non-slummy parts of South Florida, the HOAs control everything. I cannot even put up a fence either because I am on a corner. The only benefit to having an HOA in my neighborhood is the free Comcast cable and the fact that they petitioned Comcast to get us 50 Mbit internet. I am moving soon to be closer to family. I can get a 10-acre plot up north with a house twice this size for the same price. I cannot believe I ever thought this was a good idea. Okay guys, nobody mentioned to me that HOAs can petition internet providers to get better internet. Sorry guys, if that is the case, I might consider moving into a neighborhood with an HOA. Actually, I'm not even kidding. If I could live somewhere that has Google Fiber internet, I would probably even endure an HOA. I lived in a middle-class development of about 900 houses in Northern California. Our neighborhood / part of the development was unusual because people spent a lot of time outside, kids playing, people gardening, chatting, etc. Which is why we moved in there. I got a basketball hoop for my 12-year-old daughter. She and lots of neighbor kids would use it. They all knew to call car and get out of the way immediately if a car was coming. Neighborhood street, into the cul-de-sac, no through traffic. Sometimes us grown-ups would play too. A great situation. Wait, let me guess, everybody is satisfied, both adults and kids. Obviously, the HOA has to intervene. And yes, apparently, some retiree had a habit of walking around the development and called the HOA on us because basketball hoops were not allowed. I knew of several other ones, but I did not want to mention them because I did not want to give them trouble too. And the HOA said I could only have a hoop if it was put away in the side yard when not in use. The 200-pound hoop was a bit beyond my daughter's ability to take out and put back. Instead, I surveyed the 65 houses in our neighborhood, putting a slip of paper in everyone's mailbox. Yes, I should be able to keep the hoop, or no, I should not. I kept their responses anonymous because I did not want anyone to feel pressured. I got 22 yes responses, so I went to the HOA meeting armed with my data. One of the board members said, "So 2/3 of your neighborhood is against it." I explained, my anger rising, that no, I had only received responses from 1/3 and no one could know what the other 2/3 thought. Then they said I would need to change the CC&Rs, basically the association bylaws, which could only be done by a 2/3 active vote of the entire association. active, meaning I would need to get 600 yeses, not just 2/3 of the people who voted. I told them you could not get 600 people to bother voting for oxygen. And I put away my basketball hoop. And as it happened, my daughter stopped playing sports. What the hell? That's what I don't like about these Ask Reddit stories. Sometimes they have a really unsatisfying ending. So basically in this case, the HOA bullies won. Next one, we moved in when I was young, 3rd grade. The HOA was run like crap, many things were falling apart, namely the boardwalk and dock behind half the townhomes, which could have resulted in a lawsuit if someone hurt themselves. Parents were receiving tickets for everything that would happen, board members would commit acts against the rules but were untouchable. So my parents led a coup. They hired a lawyer that would sit in on meetings, made a few neighborhood friends, and my mom's best friend moved into the neighborhood. Coup was successful, so the HOA straightened up and fixed most everything. Once we moved out, it went back to shit. Next one, my old condo HOA was a pain in the ass. A bunch of crusty old farts and stupid people. When I first moved in, the monthly fee was right around $250. During my first year of living there, they did a special assessment fee to fill the account back up. Everyone now owed another $1,500. I spoke with the board and told them that I just moved in and should not owe the money. I even went through the bylaws, which clearly stated that in this circumstance, the homeowner would be exempt from special assessments within their first 6 months. I had been there around 5 months and 2 weeks, so what did they do? Apparently there were a handful of people like myself who had moved in around the same time. What did they do? They voted to change that by law to 90 days. Bam! When can we expect your check, sir? Another incident was when I wanted to install a security screen door. A normal security door is like $80 at Home Depot. I noticed that the other homes with security doors seemed to all look the same. I asked the HOA where I get one of those doors. Turns out it was a special order door from Dixieline and ran me over $400 for the door plus shipping. Then they would not let me install it myself. I had to call their authorized installer who charged me $150 to put it up. Jesus Christ, almost $600 for a stupid security door that should have cost me under $100. And the next story, grandmother's house was in a gated community across the state from me. Grandmother passes away, spent a few days at her home packing and clearing in prep of selling her home. Must be at work on Monday. Leave first thing Sunday morning to Goodwill with a bunch of donations inside rented U-Haul so that when I return I can load all the furniture and items we will keep in the truck to make long drive back home. Upon return from Goodwill, lady at gate will not let moving truck in the community because they are not allowed on Sunday. Are you effing kidding me? Refuses to budge, had to move all the things from the house using a small vehicle to the U-Haul parked on the side of the road outside of the community. F HOAs, F gated communities, F stupid small-minded people. You will never see me pay any effing buddy monthly for the pleasure of residing in their midst. And the last story is gonna be about a crazy lawsuit involving a HOA. 4 years ago, George Willow was ready for a change. His kids were grown, his father had died and he wanted to be closer to his mother. So he shut down his architectural consulting business in the Quad Cities in Iowa and bought a 3-bedroom home in the Avignon Villa subdivision in Olathe. And excuse me if I butchered that name. But instead of settling into paradise, he says, he landed in purgatory. The HOA apparently started off with attitude from the day Willow moved into the community back in 2012. They cited the homeowner for parking his car in the driveway. Rules say all vehicles must be parked in a garage overnight. They did not like his lawn statue of St. Francis either and ordered the homeowner to remove it from his front yard. Then the developer-controlled HOA paid its attorney to send a written warning to Willow over the placement of his satellite dish. The HOA board backed off when the Federal Communications Commission informed the board that federal law protects a resident's right to place a satellite dish where it is needed to ensure a strong signal. But the big dispute began when Willow, a retired architectural consultant, installed a low decorative stone retaining wall to support planting beds around the foundation of his home. Previous reports noted that before installation began, the HOA Architectural Committee approved the homeowner's landscape plan. However, Avinion's attorney says the plans approved did not specifically include the small retaining walls used to raise the plant beds. We are not talking about a fortress or a moat. The kicker is that many of Willow's neighbors think his landscape is attractive. The small change in elevation does not encroach on any easements and it does not alter storm drainage on neighboring properties. Plus, evidence produced in court by Willow's attorney shows that several other homes have similar retaining walls, but the HOA does not seem to care about those. So it is absolutely crazy that a dispute over an attractive landscape feature has spun out of control, creating a 7-year-long dispute and a lawsuit costing $1 million. Next, we will read an update to the story. An Olathe homeowner can keep his landscaping project that his HOA deemed over the top. A judge ruled Wednesday in a years-long battle that has racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Johnson County District Judge Rhonda K. Mason said the Avinion HOA treated homeowner George Willow unfairly when it denied his application for the project.
"I don't think there's any secret that this was a contentious relationship,"
Mason said of the HOA and Willow.
"The court finds that the relationship between the parties played a role in this application being denied."
Mason also ruled, however, that Willow violated his HOA rules by failing to fill out the proper application before installing the landscaping project, which features a long, low accent wall running the length of his house. So, the judge ordered Willow to pay a $25,000 fine to the HOA. Mason denied both sides' requests that attorney fees be paid by the opposing party. Instead, she ordered Willow and Avinion to pay their own legal fees. That means Avinion residents will be responsible for the HOA's bill. Willow told the Star that his legal bills surpass $300,000. Avinion board president Michael Harrington would not say what the lawsuit had cost the association. Budget documents posted on Avinion's online site indicate the HOA has spent more than $330,000 in legal fees since 2013. No other lawsuits are mentioned. So basically, the fascinating thing here is that the Avinion residents will be responsible for the mess that the HOA created. I would say you should really think twice about becoming an HOA member if you don't have to. And Ripe Stars, unfortunately we have already reached the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed the content. However, if you cannot wait for more Ripe content, then I suggest you head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where you can find more exclusive Reddit content read by me. Patreon subscriptions start at just $1 per month, and for $1 your name will show up at the end of each of my new videos. However, if you are willing to spend $3 per month, you will get access to more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos, mostly just no mother-in-law stories. However, please understand, I don't want to pressure anyone into spending money, because I am already incredibly grateful that you watch my videos every single day. Thank you so much for your daily support, it really means the world to me, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for the next video.